Welcome to the dopest podcast in the world. I'm very, very happy that you, Guy Simon, came to talk about a topic that is very hard to talk about, especially in Germany, and that is the events in the Middle East since October 7, 2023, when Hamas attacked Israel and killed, I think, over 1,200 people. And when I think back on this day, what struck me as the most outrageous thing that I ever tried to think about actually in my life was the attack on the Supernova festival, this psytrance festival that was very close to the border to Gaza, and that was attacked, and I think over 240 people died in that attack. And I mean, that alone is horrific, but I immediately thought about what state are you in when you go to a psytrance festival, when you like dance all night. Of course, you don't expect an attack at all. You take your drugs, maybe LSD, MDMA, probably for the moment of the sunrise to be at the most, sensitive and most intense life experience. And that moment, the attack happened, and I just try to put my head around it. How did these people feel? And I was unable to do so. And then I heard that actually some people did work on this. And you, Guy, are one of these people. You worked on what people experienced when they were attacked and how did they cope with it afterwards. And that's why I'm very thankful that you came. Why did you come from Amsterdam and not from Israel? What happened? When did you move?
Right. Okay. Hey, thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah. Well, I moved to Amsterdam on September last year. We moved from Israel after living there most of our life, me and my partner. We moved to Amsterdam mostly to relax, take time off, rethink, and hopefully continue with the things that we want to achieve, do. Thinking a lot about prosperity. We are very privileged to leave Israel. We're very privileged to move out. Very privileged to have European passports.
So if you would have stayed in Israel, you could not have worked so well or lived so well. Was it too intense? Or would you describe?
So we circle back to October 7 for this question.
Okay.
Well, after the events of October 7, I immediately went into I went berserk on working. In my profession, I'm a therapist and a researcher, psychedelic researcher. So after the events, a couple of individuals from field of psychology, research, harm reduction, mostly in Psytrance Festival, we came together to support the Nova Rave survivors. You mentioned them. And we built an NGO, we built an entity that is doing psychedelic-informed psychotherapy to work with the individual that experienced the attack on the Supernova. For a year and a half, I worked nonstop with the individuals, in therapy, in research, building the NGO. I was completely burned out after a year and a half. And yeah, I'm not sure that I could have healed myself in this land. The land, as we call it.
Where were you on October 7th, and how did you experience that day?
Yeah, I was with my partner. We were visiting her mother. Woke up at 6:30 in the morning heard an alarm, and it's something that I didn't experience for many years.
What kind of alarm? Like in the
saying
city?
That missiles are coming. There is an attack. Alarm that advising people to go into shelter.
Where were you?
In Jerusalem, next to Jerusalem. So, and we live up north, so we are like 2 hours and a half drive from that. We walked up
From Jerusalem?
from Jerusalem.
Where is that exactly?
Kiryat Tivon. It's a small village, an anthroposophische Gemeinschaft, next to Haifa in Israel.
Oh, next to Haifa.
Yeah.
You were there,
Yeah,
over there.
yeah.
Close to
this
the
is
coast.
this is where we live. Yeah, but
Okay.
we're visiting her mother
And where's the mother?
next to Jerusalem.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we woke up at 6:30, heard the alarm, went into the bomb shelter. In Israel, some of the houses have bomb shelters for many, many years. Went in, were really, really surprised and confused and shocked and didn't really understood what's going on. Trying to catch up with some news, understood that there is an attack, took the car and just drove back home to Kiryat Tivon, to our anthroposophic community.
All right. Because of the attack?
We needed to go anyway. We were like
Okay.
2 days there and wanted to go home. We decided to go early.
So you were on the highway in the morning while the attack still happened?
I was on the highway, and on the highway, I was calling my colleagues, my friends, starting to talk about the specific case of the Nova attack.
You already heard about it then?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Was it on the news or?
Some push notifications from some channel news saying that there were people partying in the border of Gaza and supposedly were there also attacking them. We were really not sure what's going on at the moment.
Had you heard of Supernova before? Did you know it was happening?
No.
No.
I'm
Was it?
I'm
Is
very
it?
familiar to the trans scene, but from a youth in the last, I don't know, 15 years, I didn't put my foot into a lot of trans
But
parties.
was Supernova like a famous party or was it like more fringe thing?
I think it's a more famous, more yeah, more
But when you
populistic kind of not underground.
when you heard these notifications, not underground, okay.
Yeah.
When you heard these notifications, you didn't know. You were like, oh, there was a festival and it got attacked like this.
No.
You didn't know about the festival.
There is so much psytrance festivals and parties in Israel in the weekend. Like, I don't know.
Oh.
It's a lot for Israel. Like 10,000 people are consuming drugs almost every weekend in Israel in trance festivals. So it's another party. But on the day, there were 3 parties actually next to the border of Gaza. So there was the Israeli Burning Man called Midburn. There was Sidak, which is it's an underground party. And there was the Supernova. So Supernova was 3,500 people, sold 4,000 tickets, and I think the attendees were around 3,700 people, something
Okay.
like that.
Was it the biggest on that weekend, or was the
Yeah.
Burning Man bigger?
Yeah, it was the biggest, I think, on that weekend. It's a huge event.
And what is that Israeli Burning Man?
Yeah, so there is an Israeli Burning Man called Midburn, runs for I think 10 years or something, and they had a gathering for the staff. And it was kind of a chill party kind of event. One girl from this event got killed that day. Yeah.
Why was there also attack on that?
She
gathering?
drove from the party. People that stay in this specific party were kind of saved, but she drove to a specific spot, an intersection,
Huh.
that Hamas militants were there, and she got murdered.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is that region where the Supernova Festival was? Have you ever been there before? Do you think it's unusual to make a party there, or is it like totally normal
Yeah.
to make a party there?
Great question. Well, I was never in a party in this area, and I think I was never there actually. Never even driving around there. So for me, it's not a place that I know. I know people from there, but myself, I was never there.
So you didn't know the Supernova Festival, and you didn't, but you still had a very quick impulse to work and help people who had survived this attack.
It's an impulse that kind of, it's funny that you're saying impulse. Impulse is my clinical research and education center that I have in Israel. And Impulse, yeah.
Where is that?
It's all over.
Okay.
Yeah, all over. We're doing a lot of psychotherapy, psychiatry, and psychedelic integration. So it was an impulse for me to think about those individuals being in an altered state while they're experiencing trauma. But I will be honest saying I didn't know what to do. I do have a center, I do have colleagues and people that work with me. I do have friends that are in this field, but I was mostly shocked. I was mostly shocked and kind of paralyzed. Cognitive, mentally, I didn't know what to do. But a bunch of us, 8 people, kind of start chatting between us and said that we kind of need to take care of those individuals because psychedelic informed psychotherapy is not something that is massive worldwide and also in Israel. But we kind of had this gut feeling that those specific individuals need a different kind of therapy. Of course, trauma informed care because they just experienced an acute trauma. But their therapists also need to acknowledge altered states, understand the phenomenology of altered states, maybe understand the drug's effect, etc. So it came to our head that we need to gather therapists that are psychedelic informed, are trauma experts, bringing them together to treat the Nova rave survivors, the people that flew.
Do you think it's easier to treat this kind of trauma or trauma in general with psychedelics instead of with psychotherapy, talking therapy?
You are taking us really deep into the conversation. That's a great question. I'm agnostic. I'm not sure. I don't know. For me as a researcher, I need more data. And we have a lot of data about the outcomes of psychedelic psychotherapy, especially with PTSD. But those experiences and trauma, even though people went to the same event, kind of had the same experience, it's super subjective. And for one person, psychedelic psychotherapy session can be beneficial. I will say something that is related to my interviews with the survivors. Some of them told me that they will never use a psychedelic drug again in their life. So for them,
because of that experience.
Yeah, because their last psychedelic experience was induced with trauma, severe trauma. And they're afraid. They're afraid to go back. They're afraid to kind of relive what they experience there.
How did it then evolve from this discussion online that you would help the survivors? How did you actually get to? Did you go to the place, or how?
No.
There were lists of people that were attending, or
you couldn't really get there. So at the beginning, like the first couple of days, this place kind of were under a lockdown, but everything was chaos. So individuals went there by themselves, tried to support, tried to help, tried to evacuate people from the scene. So 364 people got killed that day, 44 were kidnapped.
Wow.
And there were a lot of people that survived. So still people are trying to go back home, hitchhiking, or so they needed evacuation from this place. We didn't go there. We talked in our group chat. We understood that we can take action, that we should take action. And we just published online, Facebook or WhatsApp group or Instagram or email that we're looking for individuals, therapists, professionals that want and can and hold the right degrees and the right training to work with those kind of individuals. In several days, we got to 400 individual professionals that worked with those survivors, psychologists, art therapists, psychiatrists, body-mind therapists, etc., that volunteered. In the end, they volunteered for 3 months. They didn't get paid whatsoever working with those individuals.
I mean, in a way, the Supernova Festival and what happened there, dream would be the wrong word, obviously, but it's like for psychedelic trauma researchers, this is like an interesting situation because so many people experience trauma on psychedelics. So was there like a rush for the supernova survivors, or did no one care except you? How was it?
I will say that people in the psychedelic field, researchers and also trauma researchers, were shocked of, and I will say it like this, the opportunity to study psychedelic induced trauma in naturalistic settings.
Right.
Because it's something you cannot mimic in the laboratory. You will never, no ethical committee will approve, no Helsinki committee will approve to make someone experience a traumatic event. You can kind of re-experience some flashbacks or triggers, but this is something you cannot reproduce. So a lot of people rush to kind of take data. In our NGO, we are two groups of researchers. So one is more quantitative physiological study, really interested on the outcomes. So a person is taking this and this drug, experiencing trauma. How does he heal? How does he sleep? How does he communicate? What are the PTSD level, etc., etc. My study is specifically on the subjective experience. So in the other study, there is a couple of thousand people wearing a watch, they're taking HRV, heart rate variability, checking their sleep, questionnaires, fMRI, etc. What I'm doing, I'm interviewing. So I'm not doing this with 1,000 people, 45 people were interviewed in my study about their experience in 3 stages. So the immediate effect when they saw the missiles, the escape.
Was the festival attacked by missiles first?
Yeah. So at the beginning at 6:29, people saw missiles in the sky. And some of them were confused, thinking those are fireworks. Let's say maybe it's because they were on psychedelics and they were not sure, but also why to see missiles in the sky? A second ago, I was partying. I was having the time of my life, right? I was with my friends. So it's, I will say it like that, it's a snap back into reality, the political reality in Israel-Palestine, that people couldn't be really prepared for that. So they were confused, thinking maybe those are fireworks because they are in a party, right? So fireworks will be more logical. After that, so they saw the missiles, the organizer of the festival shut down the party, telling people to go back home because you cannot continue with missiles and yeah, it's a threat. And then they started to run away, taking the cars or by foot. The attackers came, I think it was around 30 minutes or 1 hour afterwards to this location, but they were all around the area. Okay, so they're going out of the party, but there is Hamas militants waiting in intersections. So they were fleeing, but they met their murderers. So actually, I will go to the end. People that stayed for around 2 to 3 hours and then ran through very specific location to the east got saved. People that ran immediately got killed. And people that stayed for more than 2 to 3 hours also got killed because then the entire scene was flooded with the militants.
Then they came into the festival itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what are these images with these fighters flying into the rave? Did that happen also?
They were flying not specifically to this location, but further away and staying in the intersections. So it was, this is not part of my research and I'm not a journalist and not an expert in that, but I understood that they were not aware of the party beforehand. And on the way to a specific location, they got the intelligence saying that there is a party. So they kind of redirect themselves into this
So
scene.
Hamas didn't intentionally attack this party. It kind of
They didn't know
happened.
about that. How can you
didn't.
know about a trance rave that you get the location only 2 hours before it starts? This is how it goes with trance festivals. So you don't
see.
have the location known to the public only like few hours before.
Has there ever been like a discussion in Israel whether raves should be held close to the border, or is that?
Well, so publicly, of course not. Nobody's talking about psytrance rave or nature parties, as we call them.
Right. Nature
And
parties.
Nature parties. This is the slang. And no, this discussion, this mindful consciousness discussion, is not being held only in very specific circles. So of course, I know people that are saying, no, we will not party on occupied land. But there is people that don't care about that.
But was it occupied land?
Well, it's a very strong question.
I'm
Is
sorry.
Israel an occupied land?
But it was
Is Tel Aviv?
it was as part of the territory of Israel.
It
was
is
not
part
in
of the
It was
territory.
not
It's
in an occupied
200
area.
meters from the border of Gaza.
200 meters.
200
Do you
meters.
think that location was chosen also because there would be no problem with like noise pollution because there's no Israelis living close to there, or is that not a problem in Israel in general because you have a lot of free
Well,
spaces? Or
The very direct answer to that is nature raves are held in places that the owner of the land or the organization that kind of take care of the land doesn't care. So it's a more of like, here the police are making trouble, here the IDF is saying you cannot do it, so we'll go there. And people that I was talking to told me, the interviewees in my study, that if they knew that it's held next to the border, maybe they were rethinking if they should go there. But not from political agenda, from fear.
that something might happen,
Yeah,
that they're too close.
and something happened.
But they only heard about it a few hours before, and then probably no one said, no, I'm not going. Because
Exactly.
everyone was already prepared,
Exactly.
had all the drugs,
Yes.
the big plan, when to take them. Is it true that people took them so they would work best at sunrise, sorry?
Yeah, so this is the paradigm. The most beautiful and scenic thing you can have is to see a sunrise while you're on 250 micrograms of LSD. That's the big event. Yeah, the sunrise, always.
Can you tell us what people were actually on, and also be
Sure.
as specific as you can with also microgram dosages?
Yeah, sure.
How many people do you have information from? How many people that attended the rave?
So my colleague at Haifa University that is doing the quantitative study have much more people in his data set than I do. I'm not sure about the specific numbers that he hold, but for my 45 interviewees for the qualitative and phenomenological study, we spoke with 24 people that consume LSD, 19 that add empathogens such as MDMA or MMC 3 and 4, and some individuals that took San Pedro. Yeah, so we had two groups. We had classic psychedelics and we had empathogens in my study. I think
What is ketamine?
we only spoke with 2 people that consume ketamine, but ketamine is a drug that people consume all the time, regularly. Doesn't matter if they take something else. So ketamine was not a big part or big chunk in our study, but something that I can say about ketamine that from some individuals in my data set, they told me that people that took a lot of ketamine are the people that couldn't really escape the scene. So this is terrifying to think about that. So if people...
Maybe they didn't even notice what was happening. I mean, if you have a very strong ketamine
be.
experience,
So in my LSD cohort, also a lot of people told me that they didn't know what's going on. So
on LSD,
on LSD,
they were confused.
specifically, they were confused. So I think
They thought it was just a horror trip, maybe just like a hallucination or something.
Okay, so a big theme in my cohort, the people that also took MDMA and LSD, was the fact that they experienced the situation as a movie or a video game. For them, it was kind of a challenge to escape, or they had in video games, so you have a part one, a part two, you beat the boss, and then you need to go to the next round, the next round. They kind of experience our out of body experience, kind of looking at themselves from above. So a meta perspective on the experience. And this is something, and this is kind of a finding in our study, is that was a protective mechanism. So we identified a protective mechanism we called APD, adaptive psychedelic dissociation. And it's built around a couple of themes that we kind of recognize. Some of them are something that is very common in dissociation, is depersonalization and derealization. You don't really feel yourself, and you don't really interact with the world. So your ontology and epistemology is changing around.
Talking about LSD now.
Sorry?
You're talking about LSD now.
It's both groups, classic psychedelics and MDMA. But on LSD, it was more, how can I say it, more spiritual perspective. So there is also kind of a meta perspective and a meta feeling or experience on MDMA. You have this uplifting experience. So you are above the situation. But with LSD, people really imagined or saw or felt themselves in a different location, in a different event. It was a spiritual event. It was mystical.
So did people who had this kind of experience have not like a horror experience, but actually experience they would understand and like realize this is reality now? This is...
So, of course, it's not dichotomic, right? So it's not 100%. People felt that they are in the scene and out of the scene, and it shifted. Could be in minutes, could be in seconds even. The psychedelics, both empathogen and classic psychedelic, acted as buffers from the actual horror. So when you read the quotes, you see people are describing a person shooting, or they're talking about bodies, but they're feeling kind of disconnected. They can also feel love and optimism while they're looking in the eyes of a person that wants to kill them. And this is kind of how the drugs acted as buffer. But it's a sword of Damocles in some way, because you feel protected at the moment, kind of, by the effect of the drugs, let's say it like that. Afterwards, when the effect is lowering, things are coming back up. So this is from trauma research. There is a dissociation mechanism. It's a great mechanism, one of the best mechanisms that we have.
To protect ourselves.
To protect ourselves at the moment. But what's going on afterwards? This is where PTSD comes up.
Well, why is it important to protect yourself in the moment and not let it fully in? What would happen? You would go insane?
Well,
or
I'm not sure that we can truly, I don't know, take a morbidic, horror-like experience fully in. This can destroy us, right? So we're talking let's mention Viktor Frankl, right? And his work on the Holocaust survivors. So he's saying that there is, in this equation, meaning and spirituality have a huge kind of effect on a person, inducing or not inducing the experience fully. Those people on psychedelics, I think, kind of mimicked what he was talking about in his studies.
Right. I read one study, probably from another place that was interested. Maybe you know this study, that, and maybe I misread it, but what I read from the study is that LSD and other psychedelics actually helped the people in a way to understand the situation better, what they were actually in, while alcohol made people who are just consuming alcohol, we're not really understanding, like we're buffering more, and we're therefore not really coping with it, while people on psychedelics were understanding the bigger picture. Is that, did you come across that? Would you agree, or do you have completely different?
So by now there is 3 papers published. One is a preprint. The preprint is talking about, they found that MDMA was better, is a protective mechanism than other psychedelics. And I can explain what they wrote there. Another study is saying that there is no difference between the two groups, let's call this empathogens and classic psychedelics. I am not sure that I read that people understood the situation better with the help of the psychedelics, but in both studies, they show that people that consumed cannabis and alcohol reacted worse afterwards. So they have higher PTSD rates than the people that consume classic psychedelics or empathogens.
Alcohol and cannabis are the same?
They put them in one group. I'm not sure they are the same. Yeah, but there is the group of, let's call it day-to-day kind of drugs, cannabis and alcohol, and there is the more unique drugs.
I mean, if I would imagine myself in that situation, like sober on alcohol, I probably would just be shocked and not, believe what's actually going on. But if I would imagine myself on LSD, I would imagine that maybe I immediately understand that this is an attack for certain reasons, that I'm so close to the border. And what did you come across this? Is just me, or does this not happen to everybody who is on psychedelics?
So another theme that is coming up a lot in my study is people under drugs add an impulse to do something, to run away, to save themselves, or to go back to their loved ones and family. So let's say their mind was supported by those drugs, but those experiences, but those emotions and feeling, etc., etc. Well, when I'm drinking alcohol, I'm mostly chill and relaxed and maybe slow and a bit confused. But when I, for example, could be empathogen or could be a psychedelic, there is a lot going on. There is a lot of thoughts. There is a lot of movement. There is a lot of energy. So, okay, let's say it like that. Most of the drugs are not pure completely, right? If you're consuming MDMA, could be that there is some amphetamines, also in LSD. So there is energy.
In LSD? Yeah.
When people want to make more money, they put some stuff in their LSD, of course. But people told me in my study that they never could have run for 6 hours or to save themselves without consuming those drugs. One of the questions that I'm asking them is...
if you can dance, for hours, you can also run away for hours. You have extra energy because the neurotransmitters are all released, and your brain is in an emergency situation. So maybe you're capable better to deal with an emergency.
Could be.
But how is that not a contradiction to what you first said when you said it buffers you from the experience? Now we're saying it makes you more ready for the experience, but now, and you also said it buffers you. Like, can you explain that apparent contradiction?
So it's not a one drug fit all, right? So there is not one experience. Some people felt more buffered from the experience. Some people felt more... I will talk about something else. There is adrenaline, okay? We're talking about drugs, but there is an emergency, okay? There is an event. Adrenaline kicks in. Most of the people, I believe I couldn't really take the data out because I wasn't there. So I couldn't really see what was the level of adrenaline, etc. But adrenaline kicked in, and adrenaline kind of worked together with the psychedelic at this moment. So we cannot really say if the drugs helped them escape or run away, or was it the adrenaline? If you will threat me, I have a couple of options. I can fight, and I can flight, and I can freeze, right? And I can fawn, and I can feel. I'm referring to another study that I can mention my partner is doing. But Because of that, I understood that I need to ask very specific question and to get very subjective answers of what people experienced at the moment. And I asked them, do you think it's the psychedelic or the adrenaline? So some say it was the psychedelic, some say it was the adrenaline. An empiric finding that we saw is the fact that some people didn't feel the drug effect while they were escaping, but when they reached safety, they kind of felt the LSD coming back. So what we're thinking is that adrenaline took over the psychedelic experience, but the psychedelic experience or the effect, the chemical effect was still there. So it's a very interesting thing to think about. How does the brain work with when it's induced with psychedelics and there is a threat? One of our directions to further research is to investigate that, right?
I mean, Franz Vollenweider says that on LSD, the ego or the command center receives less energy and peripheral parts of the brain start communicating. This would, in a way, be an obstacle in a situation of emergency where the general has to say, now run away or now fight back, like when you're like tripping.
Brilliant question, because I will mention an interviewee that told me that he was hiding from the Hamas militants, hiding underneath a bush on the ground, feeling the soil on his face, touching the ground, and talking to the ground, talking to the soil, and really experiencing connection and oneness and transcendence with everything. So to experience that while you're under threat, life threat, could really ease you at the moment. And it's not related, right, to the event, right? You're not supposed to feel one with the universe while a person is looking to kill you. But he did felt that under the influence of LSD. So what do I think? I think that his traumatic experience is much more complex, interesting, and unique than other experiences, that you have without psychedelics. But when you talk to people that experience trauma, they also tell stories. I was in a different place. I was in a better place. I was in a good place. This is something people unintentionally sometimes do when they experience acute trauma. They shift themselves to a different location. For the survivors of the Nova rave, they got kind of support and help with the drugs, right? Shifting themselves. But there is a question coming in the aftermath. Was it a good thing to be present and unpresent at the same time while you were experiencing a traumatic event?
So in a way, it's being more present and unpresent at the same time when you are on a psychedelic.
Depends on your culture and your perspective. For some people, being in a spiritual and a mystical experience is being more present. This is the actual world. This is what is important. For some people, the actions that they do will give them comfort afterward. So when we asked about the aftermath, some people said the fact that we don't really remember what's happened there is a good thing, because we don't need to confront with the actual images, with the actual emotions. But it doesn't mean that the emotions, the actual scenery is not there, embodied in their mind, in their whatever. It could be there. It could be evoking afterwards. Some people told me that the fact that it's kind of spiritual and mystical experience for them is a great thing, because it will not be kind of tattooed in their biography as a traumatic event. It's more of an expansion, I would say, of their being. Not trying to be poetical. This is something that people told me.
What is actually a supernova? How would you do? Do you know what it cosmologically means?
An explosion of a star, right? A sun.
Well, I think every star is a no. Every sun is a star. I think it's the explosion of a star.
Yeah.
What did you find out? What happened in the aftermath when you said that the drug might have been helping in the moment, but it didn't help in the long term? Did I understand you correctly?
I will dive deeper. So we asked a question about. It's a weird question to ask, but I really wanted to ask that. And I asked, let's say this is happening again. Already horrible thing to say. Would you take psychedelics again? Most of the people said, of course. I'm here. I'm alive. I escaped. I wouldn't change a thing. I also asked, do you think drugs can heal, can support? Most of the people said, of course. And I kind of understood that you don't contradict your sorry.
Should we just cut for a moment? What?
Rolling. What's up? We're rolling. Rolling.
What did you mean when you said that taking psychedelics, which might help you during the trauma, peri-trauma, I guess it's called,
Yeah.
is a Damocles sword
Yeah.
for what happens later? Can you
Yeah.
elaborate on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. When you try to recover from a traumatic event, you need to build a coherent narrative. So it's kind of an impulse. We want to heal ourselves. We want to have a post-traumatic growth. So this event is so meaningful. It's so huge. It's so fundamental in people's story. Every trauma. And if you have gaps, voids in the memory, so you dissociated because there is a mechanism that want to protect you. You dissociated, you were not there, so how you can rethink about what happened? How can you build the real narrative? Because people want to tell themselves a story, a good story. A question that we ask the survivors, right, is their perspective on drugs. And those are people that are not naive to drug consuming and taking. They will never say, I assume, I think that the drugs did wrong. Only a very small portion of people said, yeah, the drugs, okay, the psychedelics made things worse. A very small portion. Why is that? You don't want to go against yourself. You don't want to go against your narrative. And we can also talk about that in a political level. You don't want to go out of your own bubble, your own perspective. This is a life threat. You want a very coherent narrative, something that is very supportive. It acted as a sword of Damocles because they had gaps in their memories, in their emotions, in the remembrance of what happened. So on one hand, it was a good thing because they didn't fully experience the horror, some of them, of course. And I need to mention again, I talked to 45 people, right? On the other hand, this is why it's double-edged sword. It's hard for them, yeah, to build this coherent narrative in order to reach post-traumatic growth. Yeah.
And what happened to people on alcohol? Were they able to construct a coherent narrative?
I was not speaking to people that took alcohol. I was only speaking to people that consumed classic psychedelics and pathogens. So I'm not sure. In other studies, as you mentioned, people that took alcohol reacted worse than people that took other drugs in their PTSD
you can't
level.
compare that because you didn't talk to them.
Exactly.
Okay. Did people who took psychedelics have an opportunity later on to like how did the relationship how did Israelis react on that? Like, what changed exactly in people and in you, and also in what you saw probably at your friends?
Regarding the drugs,
The political
the
situation,
political
like the
situation.
people who attacked you. Like, how did you feel,
Well,
and how did that feeling change, maybe, or
yeah,
did it stay the same?
yeah. So I'm trying to wrap my head around this question. It's hard. How do people in Israel change after this event? Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Israel is very divided. Okay, there is the people that hold a very coherent narrative about who are the Palestinians and our rights on the land. And this is something that they will take with them wherever they will go. This is a sword, this is a shield, this is meaning, this is everything for them, right? Israelis, most of them have, they hold this ancestral trauma, right, coming from the Holocaust, etc., etc. So you always need kind of to defend yourself. Some of the people saw this attack as an approval of what they were fearing for many, many years. And maybe some of them use it also to, what will be the word for that? To hold a perspective regarding what's going on in Gaza at the moment. Another group is seeing what happened as an approval of what they thought, that it's an occupied land, and when you occupy people and you suppress them and suppress them, they will collapse. So
Well, how
October
did
7 is an approval for ending the occupation.
but did you like feel understanding or hatred or like aggression against the Hamas attackers?
My biography is full with political acts, activism against the occupation. After October 7, personally, I felt betrayed. I felt like I don't understand myself, the world, the conflict. I was angry. I was furious. I was confused. I was traumatic. And then I became post-traumatic. Couldn't really deal with my political views, my agendas. And I thought I'm changing from a lefty to a righty. And I was shocked because this is not me. This is not what I know. I have a very coherent narrative, a very coherent biography. Yeah. I didn't go to the army. Maybe I should have gone to the army? What's going on here? I was shocked. It took me 2 months to kind of go back to myself, but still feeling very fragile and shooken from that. I went abroad. I went to visit friends and colleagues in Europe, and I was very, very intense the entire time. My body was like ready to fight. After a week, I felt chiller, and I felt like things can be different. If I'm a bit away from the situation, the conflict, I can think more clearly. Regarding your first question, why did I leave and for what, is to go back to this experience of really feeling myself and not only thinking about myself.
So you experienced yourself a trauma, basically, like everyone in Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in trauma, secondary trauma also, because I was working with people that were there and I was exposed to a lot of horror stories. Holding those stories for so many months is something that's influenced me a lot. But something that I wanted to mention, when the war started to be more and more intense, and I saw the footages going from Gaza, I was more devastated. And then I went back to those emotions and thinking perspective that I knew that I have, but I didn't feel them for some time.
Do you remember when this moment was, when the horrors of Gaza were overwhelming?
There is two situations that really shook me. Footages, stories, individuals. I read their stories, I saw their footages, I saw their videos. So I really felt connected to the individual that is sharing what he's experiencing. This has really shook me out. Another thing is numbers. When numbers started to gather and it became thousands, 10,000s, I cannot wrap my head around that. I don't know how 2,000 people in the same place look like. So 60,000. I cannot imagine that. And I understood it's something that I cannot even grasp. This is another thing that really shook me, that I need to understand the numbers. I need to see the entire scene. I went to Google Maps and I looked on Gaza before the war, during the war. I cannot say after the war, unfortunately, but now. And I understood. That's, we are causing horrors that will chase Israel, will chase Israelis for centuries, that will chase Palestinians for centuries. I cannot fully grasp what's going on now, but it really puts things in perspective. Very sad, morbidic perspectives.
I mean, to heal this kind of trauma, you need also a coherent story. What is that story? Will Israel be able to tell itself that story? Or will it just not understand or not look at what is happening?
We don't have enough solidarity in Israel. We are doing dehumanization of an entire nation in order to build a coherent story for us. The land of Jews, the Holocaust, revival. This story cannot overcome the Palestinian story. The Palestinian story cannot be in the shadow of the Israeli or the Jewish story. They need to find a way to be told together. I don't know if it will happen. I hope it will happen, but I'm kind of pessimistic. And I'm very privileged to put this aside and look this in a meta perspective, like those individuals on psychedelics did at the Nova. And maybe I can feel different things. Maybe I can be in a more mystical or spiritual perspective on the situation and help more. Because when I'm inside of the situation, my body reacts. I'm becoming angry, anxious, scared.
So you changed your reaction was from, if you said betrayal, like how could they do something like this, to now
I need to say, I know how they can do something like this. I know, I can understand the politics. I can wrap my head around this. But it's not something that I can understand in my intellect. It's a feeling.
And did many Israelis react like you, that they at one point saw what you said, the numbers or what is happening? Or do Israelis, how is it there?
Usually I'm a friend of people who are like-minded. So most of the Israelis I know personally think like me. So I can say that a big portion of people feel the way I feel, think the way I feel, but those are my friends. This is the problem with Facebook, right? You're becoming a friend of your friends. So your entire feed is lefty or
So
righty.
in your bubble, everything is cool.
In my bubble, a lot of people are working very, very hard to change the current situation. But outside of my bubble, there is hatred, there is dehumanization, there is violence, there is ignorance, and there is rigidity.
And how big is your bubble?
Very small. Very small.
And I saw the talk of the Arab Psychedelic Society at the MAPS conference.
Yeah.
And they were talking about healing their trauma, the Palestinian trauma, which is for them very difficult to heal because they don't have a safe space where they can do that. Unlike the Supernova survivors, they have a safe space. And even for them, we will talk a bit more how difficult it is for them. So, but also they said the Palestinian trauma would have to be healed collectively because the suffering comes from a collective situation. Is that the same for Israelis, or is that different?
So I will go back into my research. One of the findings that we saw is that the best healing path for them is through communal acts, communal gathering, partying together, singing
In
together,
Israel.
sitting together. I'm talking about the Nova Rave survivors, so
Right.
the group of people that I researched. And in one of my papers, I'm saying individual therapy is great, but they need to go back into their culture, into their narrative, and re-experience this in a supportive and safe space. Same for Palestinians, of course. Of course, they need to come together as a collective and support each other. Same for Israelis. Healing through a community is the most profound way, as much as I understand, of healing through a collective trauma. It is a personal and a collective trauma. So there is the personal act that you need to do, but there is also the collective.
Have you worked on working on trauma through ayahuasca in Israel? Because that's a collective trauma healing experience, I would imagine.
So you're referring to Leo Rosman from Exeter University in the UK, and he have a study. He's investigating what is the journey and the outcome of Israelis and Palestinians sitting together and drinking ayahuasca. So it's not my study, but Leo is mentioning a lot of themes, very, very interesting experiences, a lot of shared grief that is going on, but there is the aftermath, right? They're sitting, they're doing collective work, drinking ayahuasca, they're doing collective integration. But then a person needs to go back to his occupied village or to his house in Tel Aviv. How do they go back to the same experience that they had there? This is another thing with psychedelic experiences. Going to Peru and doing a dieta on ayahuasca can bring a lot of insights. But if you're not really happy or feeling connected to your everyday life, how can you integrate those things? Will you quit your job? Will you throw your fiance? Yeah. Life and psychedelic experiences need to find a way to be more synergetic, and sometimes it's not the case.
Did this work on Supernova help you to work with your own trauma about that day? Like, was that also part of why you did it, to actively do something with that in that experience?
I'm a workaholic. I need to have a destination when I'm moving in the world or even being in the world. This is a problem that I personally have. So it's very hard for me to calm down and to say, this is okay. Sitting on the sofa is fine. For me, it's just a nightmare. Having the opportunity and the privilege to work with those individuals that experience this kind of trauma and to support them with my experience. So I'm coming from studying psychedelics and trauma. To bring my expertise and my knowledge into treating those people, for me, it was the best thing I could imagine for myself. Without that, I cannot even imagine what will be my mental case. will be hard mental case. Working with them was,
Is the study finished now,
Very-
or are you still continuing to speak with
yeah.
the survivors?
I'm not actively interviewing any survivors at the moment, so we have 2 papers. Both are under review at the moment, and I hope they will be published in the next month or so. We still hold a lot of data, and there is other groups that we're trying to work with to understand better what happened there. But at the moment, I'm moving away from talking to the Nova Rave survivors. I feel like I did my part the best I could, and I want to have other subjects in my study. But I think forever it will be, I will tell you that. I'm coming from a study on challenging psychedelic experiences together with another group called the Challenging Psychedelic Experience Project. Before talking to the Nova Rave survivors, I talked with a lot of individuals that experienced trauma while being on psychedelics or re-experiencing trauma from their childhood while being on psychedelics. So most of the people I'm talking to about their psychedelic experiences have very hard stories, very tragic stories. But I do think the Nova Rave survivors will be an antipode in my biography because I'm involved with that emotionally, yeah. Spiritually, politically. Yeah.
Did you ever think about the Hamas attackers being on Captagon, like a strong amphetamine? And how does that relate to their victims on psychedelics?
Yeah. So I think we can circle back to buffers, right? So being on amphetamines buffer you from feeling, from connecting. You are focused on the target. When I want to be very productive, I'm taking Ritalin, right? So it's not the same drug, but working on the same mechanisms. If what you intend to do is to kill people and you are on drugs, it will clear your surrounding. Or if we're referring to the Nova Rave survivors, if your intention is to save yourself, right? Maybe the psychedelics kind of clear the horrors. So maybe for them it cleared emotional connecting to the victims, and for them it cleared the actual horrors that they saw.
It's interesting, someone on amphetamines trying to kill someone on psychedelics. And maybe the psychedelics make you smart
It's
enough.
the 60s all over again, right? So take Ritalin and ignore the psychedelics. It's very clever. Yeah.
Do you know of any trauma work with like Hamas fighters from that day?
Wow, no. Wow, no. I would love to lead this investigation. If you can get the cohort of people, I will be there, wearing a shield, maybe. Yeah, because they will kill each other.
How do you see the outside world reacting to this conflict? And is not everyone currently experiencing some kind of a trauma because we see things that are so horrible and we can't do anything, or we can do very little about it. At least we could speak about it maybe. But it's still very hard to copy this for anyone, no?
What I see around me is people protesting, speaking out loud, trying to convince others that something horrible is happening, everyone with his own perspective. And I'm very happy to see that, but I saw this in footages and filmed from our history. And I really hope something will change, but in the end, there's few individuals, very high ranked, and they call the shots. People are doing their best that they can. I'm trying to do the best that they can to support, to change, to believe in a different future. But I know that my powers are limited.
So did I understand you correctly? Psychedelics help you to form a coherent story, and that's how you heal the trauma. Is that how it works? Or how do psychedelics actually heal trauma? How does
How
it?
do psychedelics actually heal trauma?
Yeah.
So the paradigm is that on psychedelics, we can kind of lower our rigid thoughts and perspectives about self and other. When you are on psychedelics, you can rethink yourself, you can rethink the world. So other things, other thoughts, other perspectives can come into your system. And under this experience, let's say you are with a guide, right? You can hold a different perspective for a while. After the experience, if you're doing a great integration, this perspective can stay. So if you have rumination or a rigid thought under psychedelics, you might shift it. This is the paradigm of how psychedelics support us psychologically. Healing trauma, empirically, I'm not sure. Healing this or that, I'm not sure. But for perspective, for life anxiety, for existential depression, it can be very beneficial.
So what are then these negative effects of the Damocles sword? What's the problem in the aftermath with the psychedelics that you took during the trauma?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. As I mentioned, it's sort of Damocles because you have gaps and voids in your memory that are very, very important for you. You want to understand how you escaped and what was the actual story. It's a sort of Damocles because it's still a drug. It's still a substance that you took, and in their perspective, it helped them escape or save themselves. And they cannot really be sure if it's them or the experience or the drug. This is what I think. And it's really hard to differentiate, and I'm not sure that they will get the answer. But at some point, the ones that will be healthier, they will decide. Probably they will decide that they themselves escaped.
And
It's not a coincidence.
And does taking psychedelics make you more pro-Palestinian, or can you not say that?
For me, taking psychedelics is, as I mentioned, it's expanding my perspective. It's kind of throwing away very rigid thoughts and feelings. For me, being pro-Palestinian is to be pro-life. It's not to be in favor of my enemy. It's to be pro-life. Psychedelics can support that, but it's also my kind of baseline.
Yeah, because I heard that there's ayahuasca circles in the occupied West Bank of settlers, and they feel like one with God and with the universe. But if like a Palestinian would walk in the door, that would be like not really working out,
Sure.
you know.
Sure. I need to say that. That can be for
So the ideology is stronger than the psychedelic.
culture is stronger than the psychedelics. Okay, so this is for the real that you do to publish this podcast. Psychedelics don't do anything. They're empty. They have no effect, zero effect. Okay? I'm not a scientist that doing hardcore science, but psychedelics are culture, our mindset, our perspective that we hold before the experience. If you're not even considering Palestinians or other people as people, what can psychedelics do? Right. Psychedelics also bring, March to the Capitol, right? In Washington, was led by people that are psychedelic seekers. They were not, as much as I understand, pro-life. They were pro-Trump, whatever it means.
So drugs are neutral. They don't really push us in one direction or the other.
Stanislav Grof, I think, said this perfectly. Non-specific amplifiers.
Right.
Could be amplifiers of hate, can be amplifiers of dehumanization, can be amplifiers of whatever you bring into the table. They're the fork and the knife. They're the plate, maybe.
Can you envision a future of the Middle East and the world that's peaceful?
No,
You don't think it will happen?
no.
That's a very Israeli answer. In Israel, no one can imagine that.
I'm broken. I'm sad. I'm shattered. It's not up to me. I can see a future that I have more Palestinian friends and colleagues, more people around me that are working on the same cause. But nations, countries, borders, politics, I cannot wrap my head around that. I don't know the first thing about that.
So you cannot imagine a future where nation states play less of a role and borders are easily
Oh, I'm not John Lennon.
everyone can go anywhere
No.
he or she wants to.
No,
You can't see that?
unfortunately. But
So you think we're just going to be stuck in hell now for the rest of our time, or
we can take psychedelics.
to escape? Or
To be in another dimension that could be parallel or can be synergetic with this concrete world.
right.
Yeah. I want to work or to feel a couple of dimensions of my being, of my present. This is why psychedelics are so great for palliative care to end of life. It's not only the body that suffers, there is also a spiritual world. There is also this spirit around me. There is another dimension. This is why they're great for life anxiety. They're great to work with the fear of death.
But you don't think they could bring
Peace.
peace?
I think people need to bring peace.
Yeah, they can
not psychedelics.
energize. They can energize people,
Yeah.
and people then can create peace movements. Psychedelics itself are not,
Yeah,
are not a
drop
peace
acid, not bombs. Timothy Leary said that in the 60s.
Not so much has changed since the 60s, I think.
No, no. The
quite
United States is still attacking countries abroad. Israelis and Palestinians are still fighting and killing each other. People are escaping. There is still concentration camps. There is still genocide. There is still war and crimes. I'm not different. I'm my ancestors, but in present. So, no. It's
So
hard for me to be
how do you
optimistic.
continue to live when you think it's never going to get better?
Dissociation. Maybe adaptive psychedelic dissociation induced by other experiences.
Right.
So I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, but I'm also happy and I feel love and I'm being love and giving love, but I'm also depressed and I'm also anxious.
So that all has to do with why you moved to Amsterdam to get,
I wanted to feel more. And in Israel, Palestine, I felt something very, very consistent with my emotions, with my thinking. I'm afraid, I'm worried.
all right.
Now I can be afraid and worried and other things. There is a complexity that is very hard to hold when you are in a survivor mode. And everything about this situation is so complex. I'm worried that people cannot hold complexity. And I'm worried that because of that, nothing good is coming for Israelis and Palestinians. Israelis are not looking at the news, some of them. In the world, they're saying, what's going on? What are we doing? They don't want to hold this complexity. They want a very coherent story to heal their wounds. to heal their ancestral trauma. Could be 2,000 years ago, could be 80 years ago. And this is what scares me the most, that people don't rethink. People don't change their mind, right? Referring to Michael's Pollan book. To change your mind is an act of healing. To be naive is an act of healing. People don't want to be naive. If they will be naive, they will get shot. This is what's going on there for both sides.
So enough psychedelics, so enough maybe mutual rituals. I think that idea with having these ayahuasca circles for Israelis and Palestinians seems like one of the few things that make any sense at all to bring people together, no?
I think when they sat down and designed this research, this group thought, I will ask him, if people sit here together and experiencing the same thing as a group, and this group can be with different nationalities, different genders, they might have some connection that it's very hard for them to create outside of this bubble. So maybe creating bubbles and bubbles and bubbles and bubbles, yeah, we'll have a bath eventually. And I think it's a great way to achieve maybe peace. And there's a lot of activities and a lot of places Israelis and Palestinians can meet, but not enough. You mentioned the psychedelic science. I was sitting in the same, I was sitting not far away from you. And I was there feeling their energy, supporting them, cheering them.
Psychedelic Arab Society.
Yeah. Clapping my hands.
Yeah. Well, that's what
and they did the same for me.
I saw that also at the MAPS conference in Denver, that Palestinians and Israelis who were in the psychedelic scene had no problem with each other whatsoever, were actually very interested in each other and were exchanging from the heart. Like they actually were the people, the Israelis and the Palestinians, which had the most energy at the conference. Like they really had a story. I mean, they have this intense thing going on, you know, but there's also a positive exchange between people.
I think when people are coming from different experiences and different perspective, but they can grieve together, just grieve, everyone with his own grief, and be empathic, and to actually identify with this grief, I think they can march together and hold hands. But they need to stay with their narrative. Maybe some Israelis need to stay with their narratives. This is a kind of a primitive act that we do in order to save ourselves and to give meaning. And I think it's very complex to hold that and also hold hands at the same time. But it's working. And another thing regarding what we just talked, the Israelis and the Palestinians in the psychedelic science, I think we kind of understand that we are unique, that we want to meet, that we have shared interests, we have shared perspectives. And I think we don't want to hurt each other. We don't want to insult each other. We will do our best to protect that. This is what I understand. Right? So we are a community, we're a tribe of people that are consuming psychedelic or research psychedelic or doing therapy with psychedelics. We have perspectives that are similar. We're coming from different nationalities or etc.
Do you think if psychedelics were legalized worldwide in a month or so, that would change something like the conflict, the war that's going on there right now, and the whole global political situation? And how would that, I mean, in relation to healing our trauma, creating a better narrative?
No.
You don't think we just need to
make psychedelics
form better narratives, and psychedelics help in forming narratives? I mean, psychedelics help in healing trauma. Why can't they work on a more global scale?
I think people should refuse participating in wars. And then they can consume psychedelics and flex their psychology and their perspective. But taking this rifle that you have and putting it on the
So
ground,
non-violence,
non-violence is the most important thing.
right?
And looking in the eyes of another person and saying, he is like me. He's speaking differently, maybe he looks differently, but he is like me. Maybe I'm a hippie, I'm not sure, but I don't think psychedelics can do that. I think reaching bottom can do that. Sometimes I can only say sorry where I'm in my lowest place. And I cannot say that when I'm trying to hold my perspective, my agenda. This is why people are hurting each other in fights, right? Sometimes with their fists, sometimes with their words. And I think we reach bottom, and I think we should refuse.
Thank you very much for coming from Amsterdam to Berlin, Guy. It
Yeah,
was
thank you for inviting me.
a true pleasure to speak about this
Appreciate
very
it.
intense and difficult topic, especially on German soil. I'm very happy we had this conversation.
Thank you, Norman.
Thank you so much.